Tonight, Donald Trump throwing Canada into chaos after calling Canada a state and calling its Prime Minister Governor Justin Trudeau. Comes as Trump's nemesis in Canada.
Lights out America. Canada just made a surprising announcement that has the U.S. looking for explanations. In a surprising turn of events, officials up north are now thinking about stopping electricity supply to important areas of the United States. That's correct. One of the largest energy sources in America could be at risk, and the consequences could be huge. Why is Canada making this surprising threat, and what does it mean for many Americans who depend on that power?
Ontario Premier Doug Ford, he is calling for his country to use every tool in our toolbox, a direct quote, including cutting off Canadian energy to the United States if Trump follows through with his.
Canada is thinking about stopping its energy supply to the United States if President Donald Trump puts heavy tariffs on Canadian products. Everything is on the table, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said on Wednesday after meeting with Canada's provincial and territorial leaders. The head of Alberta, Premier Danielle Smith, did not include her name on a shared statement from the leaders that aimed to show they were united against an economic challenge from Trump that is coming soon. Government officials are still talking about the possibility of stopping energy supply to the U.S. and putting tariffs on Alberta energy and other goods going to the United States, Smith shared on X. Until these problems stop, Alberta won't be able to completely back the federal government's plan for handling the possible tariffs. Canada is the biggest source of energy for the U.S., providing around 60% of its crude oil imports. As of 2020, Canada provided the U.S. with 98% of its natural gas imports, 93% of its electricity imports, and 28% of its uranium purchases, according to government data. Trump has said he will impose 25% tariffs on Canada if it doesn't address the flow of fentanyl and illegal migration at their shared border. However, Trudeau has pointed out that less than 1% of illegal crossings and fentanyl seizures occurred at the Canadian border. The Liberal government has showed a $1.3 billion plan to enhance border security, while Trudeau and his cabinet keep discussing matters with the new Trump administration. Leaders from the main oil-producing provinces have cautioned about a national unity crisis if the federal government uses Canadian oil in reaction to tariffs, widening the gap between Ottawa and Western Canada. Smith and Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe are urging Trudeau to hold a federal election so Canada's Prime Minister can have a solid backing to negotiate with Trump. Trudeau, who stepped down as the leader of the Liberals earlier this month, will stay on as Prime Minister until at least March. The Liberal Party is focused on finding a replacement for Trudeau, which is giving some premiers the confidence to take charge of tariff discussions. Last week, Smith went to Mar-a-Lago, where she mentioned that she talked to Trump 2 times. She told Canadians that tariffs are on the way, while Trudeau's government said Smith is putting Canada's interests at risk. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who manages over $493 billion in trade with the U.S., attended Wednesday's meeting wearing a blue cap that said, "Canada is not for sale." He asked his colleagues to stick together during the upcoming trade talks. "He's going to ruin our country," Ford said. "He's going to attempt to split our nation, and we must not allow any division in our nation." Other premiers share Trudeau's view that all choices should stay open, even if it involves using Canada's energy as a tool for negotiation. "I think of energy as Canada's queen in this chess game," said Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Andrew Furey, whose province makes oil and hydroelectricity that goes into the United States. Quebec Premier François Legault cautioned that a trade war will negatively impact Americans in an opinion piece aimed at lawmakers in Washington, released before Wednesday's meeting. In an article for The Hill, Legault cautioned that tariffs on Canada and Mexico might lower U.S. GDP by at least 1% within a year, excluding the effects of inflation. He mentioned that Quebec provides U.S. companies with 64% of the raw aluminum. A 25% tariff would just lead to higher prices for beer cans, car parts, airplane parts, and many other items for people and companies in America, he said. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce is saying that many tariffs on Canadian products might lead to Canada's economy facing a recession by the middle of the year. 10 weeks ago, Trudeau's government tried to assure everyone that everything would be okay. On Wednesday, they informed Canadians to prepare for talks and to get ready for what's coming. The message said that if Ottawa responds, it will use any extra money to support Canadian workers and businesses. The leaders also decided to boost defense spending, move forward with energy projects, and improve security at the Canada-US border. This all took place because of Trump's tariffs. He began a trade war, and now states are responding. The United States has put high taxes on goods coming from Mexico, Canada, and China, leading to quick responses from its North American neighbors. U.S. President Donald Trump signed 3 different executive orders on Saturday, putting a 25% tax on goods from Canada and Mexico and a 10% tax on all imports from China. Energy brought in from Canada, like oil, natural gas, and electricity, would have a tax of 10%. Trump mentioned that the tariffs were needed to protect Americans and committed to maintain the duties until what he referred to as a national emergency in the U.S. over the drug fentanyl and undocumented migration is resolved. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum quickly decided to impose tariffs in response, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that Canada would also apply matching 25% tariffs on up to $155 billion in U.S. imports. China has criticized the tariffs, with Finance and Commerce ministries stating that Beijing will bring the U.S. to the World Trade Organization, but it did not escalate the situation right away. Trump announced a national emergency using the International Emergency Economic Powers Act and the National Emergencies Act to support the tariffs, giving the president broad authority to impose sanctions in response to crises. The new duties follow Trump's ongoing threats during the 2024 presidential campaign and since he took office. This goes against warnings from economists that a new trade war with the U.S.'s main trade partners could harm the country's growth and increase prices for both consumers and businesses. Tariff collections will start at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 05:01 Greenwich Mean Time on Tuesday, as stated in Trump's written order. Imports that were put on a ship or their last way of getting to the U.S. before 12:01 a.m. Saturday won't have to pay the duties. A fact sheet from the White House mentioned that the tariffs would remain until the crisis got better, but it did not explain what the 3 countries would have to do to get a break. U.S. officials said there would be no exceptions to the tariffs, and if Canada, Mexico, or China responded to U.S. exports, Trump would probably raise the duties. They mentioned that Canada, in particular, would not be able to use the de minimis U.S. duty exemption for small shipments that are under $800. The officials mentioned that Canada, together with Mexico, has turned into a pathway for sending fentanyl and its starting materials into the U.S. using small packages that custom agents don't usually check. Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, announced that Canadian duties on $30 billion in trade involving U.S. alcohol and fruit will start on Tuesday, coinciding with the implementation of U.S. tariffs. He started his speech to Canadians with a message for American shoppers. "It will really affect you, the American people," he said, adding that it would lead to higher prices on food and other items. "What the White House did today has divided us instead of uniting us," Trudeau said, cautioning in French that it might lead to difficult times for many people. He urged Canadians to pick Canadian products and services instead of American ones. Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, reacted to Trump's announcement in a post on X, stating that she had told her economic secretary to put together a response that includes tariffs and other actions to protect Mexico's interests. "We strongly disagree with the White House's false claims that the Mexican government has ties to criminal groups, and we have no plans to interfere in our land," Sheinbaum wrote. If the U.S. government and its agencies wanted to tackle the big problem of fentanyl use in their country, they could work against the sale of drugs on the streets of their major cities, which they don't do, and the money laundering that this illegal activity creates, which has caused so much harm to its people. It's important to note that a large portion of Mexico's imports, about 80%, is sent into the U.S. The country is Mexico's biggest trading partner. Experts say that we will notice the effects almost immediately, starting with prices increasing and then followed by a rise in inflation. In the U.S., Republicans were happy about Trump's decision, while industry groups and Democrats gave serious warnings about how it could affect prices. Jake Colvin, president of the National Foreign Trade Council, NFTC, stated that Trump's actions could increase the prices of everything from avocados to automobiles, and called on the U.S., Canada, and Mexico to quickly find a solution to prevent further escalation. "We need to work together with Canada and Mexico to help American companies compete better and make it easier for them to sell their products around the world," Colvin said in a statement. Democrats quickly pointed out that any future inflation is due to Trump, who is just starting his third week back as president. You're concerned about the cost of groceries. Don is increasing prices with his tariffs, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer of New York shared on X. You're concerned about the cost of tomatoes. Just wait until Trump's tariffs on Mexico make your tomato prices go up. You're concerned about the cost of cars. Just wait until Trump's tariffs on Canada make your car prices go up, he said in several posts. Well, with this ongoing conflict and Canada's response, things are looking bad for America. If Canada stopped providing electricity to some areas of the United States, the results would be very serious, affecting the economy, everyday life, and even relationships with other countries. The United States relies a lot on electricity from Canada, especially from hydroelectric plants in Quebec, Manitoba, and British Columbia. States such as New York, Minnesota, and Michigan are some of the biggest users of this imported power, depending on it to satisfy a large part of their energy needs. If this supply suddenly stops, it would cause a chain reaction of problems impacting millions of people, companies, and important services. Electricity grids work by keeping a careful balance between how much power is made and how much is used, and any sudden change can lead to big problems. If Canada stops sending electricity to some U.S. states, it could lead to many areas losing power. Power companies would have a hard time finding other sources quickly, causing rolling brownouts and blackouts in many areas. Some places might have long power cuts, which would mean people could be without important things like lights, heat, cool air, and even internet access. During winter, this can be very dangerous. Cold northern states use electric heaters to stay warm during freezing weather. If the power goes out, people might have to deal with really cold temperatures, which can cause pipes to freeze, damage buildings, and raise the chances of getting very sick or even dying. During summer, places that depend on air conditioning to deal with very hot weather might face problems, leading to heat-related sickness and even deaths. With Canadian electricity no longer available, the need for power from other sources would quickly increase. The U.S. power grid would have to rely on other energy sources like natural gas and coal, but these industries are already under pressure because of rising demand and environmental rules. This would cause electricity prices to rise a lot, making it hard for many American families to pay their utility bills. Companies and sectors would experience this effect even more strongly. Factories, tech firms, and data hubs need a lot of power to operate. As energy prices rise, costs for running a business will increase significantly, leading many companies to reduce expenses, let go of workers, or close their doors for good. The money lost could be in the billions, leading to a big economic drop in the areas impacted. The impacts would spread throughout the whole U.S. economy. Transportation, food production, and retail businesses all need a steady power supply to work well. Problems with electricity supply might cause prices for things and services to go up, making the inflation issue even worse. Prices for things like groceries and gas might go up a lot, making it even harder for people in America. The possible power crisis wouldn't just be a money problem, it could also endanger millions of lives. Hospitals, emergency services, and security systems all need a steady supply of electricity to work well. If power goes out a lot, hospitals would need to use backup generators, but these aren't made to last through long outages. Machines that help save lives, such as ventilators, incubators, dialysis machines, and surgical tools, all need electricity to work. If hospitals begin to lose power, it might cause medical emergencies, postponed surgeries, and even loss of life. Emergency responders like fire departments, police, and paramedics depend on a steady power supply to work well. If 911 call centers have power outages, it could take much longer for help to arrive, putting people at risk during important emergencies. Traffic lights and street lamps would stop working, raising the chances of accidents, crime, and overall disorder in cities. Keeping the country safe would also be a big issue. Lots of military bases, government places, and cybersecurity work depend on getting power from Canada. A sudden power outage could harm important systems, making the U.S. more open to cyber attacks, hacking efforts, and possible security issues. If bad people were to take advantage of the situation, it could turn into a big problem for our country's safety. This wouldn't just be a big problem for the economy and society, it would also start a serious political issue between the U.S. and Canada. The two countries have had agreements about money and trade for a long time, and sending electricity is an important part of that relationship. If Canada stopped sending power to the U.S., it would look like a clear move against the economy, leading to a response from the U.S. government. The U.S. might react strongly, putting in place tough trade limits, adding more tariffs, or even taking legal steps against Canada. The action might lead to a diplomatic problem, causing tensions to rise between the leaders of the two countries. Since the U.S. and Canada economies are closely linked, this type of disruption might have lasting impacts on trade, business relationships, and political ties. Also, people in nearby states might start asking the government for help, putting more pressure on the White House to do something. This might cause a tough political fight in Congress, with leaders discussing whether to talk things out, respond back, or look for other energy options fast. After the current problem, a long power outage could seriously harm important systems in the states that are affected. Lots of power grids aren't built to cope with quick supply losses, and not having electricity could seriously hurt public services, water treatment facilities, and transport systems. Water cleaning places need power to run pumps and filters. Without it, towns might run low on clean water, which could cause health problems and spread sickness. Over time, companies and investors might start to doubt the U.S. power grid, causing a move towards efforts for energy independence. States might begin to encourage more energy production at home, putting money into nuclear power, wind, and solar energy more quickly to avoid depending on electricity from other countries. But creating new energy systems takes a long time, so the immediate crisis would still lead to significant harm before solutions can be completely put in place. If Canada goes ahead with this threat, the results would be huge, from power outages and money problems to political issues and safety concerns. Many Americans would be looking for answers, while companies and governments try to manage the fallout. The big question is Canada really planning to stop supplying electricity to the U.S., or is this just a clever political move? If things go really badly, the United States might have to deal with a huge energy problem, one that could take a long time to fix. And with that, we conclude this video. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe for more updates on the latest in global economics and politics. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can be notified every time we post a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.